everyone. I'm Jacopo or Jack. I'm here just to facilitate a little bit this event. So try to take your question. If you want to chat, text me in the chat if you have any problem or connection or anything. I'm here for that. And I would like to introduce you first of all to José Huerta, which is our speaker today in our Codurance chat. And we'll be speaking a little bit about how to help a team to learn. It's actually the second section of this talk. So I'm not sure if everyone was here before at the first section or
It's
not.
actually, I think, like the fourth. I did a first one that was like an overview of the whole technical coaching toolkit. And then I've been going into each of the sections in deeper detail, let's say. But yes, it's the second one, I think, in this year, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. Yeah.
Cool. Sorry about that.
No, it's
And yeah, on the top of this, I just would like to say that thank you, of course, everyone to be here because Codurance is growing up thanks to our community. And so I would like to say if anyone here, maybe in the future, would like to give a speak or to be a bit more involved with Codurance, we are always here. You can chat us and send us a message. And about the question, Jose told me that it's fine to just try to drop them when you have them. It's gonna be kind of a conversational thing. So don't be shy to just speak up or write something in the chat. And it's all for you, Jose, I think.
okay. Thank you very much, Jacobo, for that lovely introduction. How's everyone doing? I see lots of cameras out. This is, I do expect these sessions to be interactive, so I'll be asking questions. So if you want to answer in the chat or, just put on the microphone at some point, that's fine as well. Let's hope that I won't be talking to myself for a very long time. All right. So as I mentioned at the beginning, just to get started, this is a series that we're doing on technical coaching because it's part of what we do at Codurance. And there's a few things that we've learned during this time, and it's always great to share with the community and to improve as well, because don't take this as the only way to do things, not at all. If you have other points of view, if you want to contribute or put forward some other ideas, they're more than happy, and we're here to learn from each other. Yeah. So the topic of today's session is how to help the team learn, and this has to do with a bit of a misconception that people have around technical coaching, where usually it is very associated with something like doing pair programming or sitting down and doing mob programming or something like that. Yeah. And I'd like to understand first who's in the room, just to get the ball rolling. Have any of you done this in the past? Let's say you maybe as a team lead, you're trying to coach your team, or you're trying to help them improve technically. Maybe you've been hired by a company to do something like this or something similar. This is a question for the group.
Well, I do have like I say junior, but I have someone that I try to share some of my knowledge with, and yeah, surely I don't know what's the best way to do that. Most likely, what's the best exercise or best way of doing so.
Yeah, this is the thing that there, as a Scrum Master, is part of my job. Exactly. So this is something that you don't necessarily need to be a technical coach to be able to do. And a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about are things that you can use for yourself, whether you're doing technical coaching or not. Whatever it is that you're trying to coach someone in, or you're trying to help someone learn in, this will be helpful, right? So without further ado, let's just jump into it. Today's session, I want to focus on a couple of questions that for me are key to this. Yeah. So the first thing is, how do teams learn, or how do groups learn, for the case of the purpose of what we're doing? No, because a lot of times when we're working as technical coaches or Scrum Masters or whatever, we are working with the individuals, but we are also working with a team or with a group, right? So this is an important aspect to understand. We'll also be looking at what it is that we're trying to teach, and the nature of that, how that changes Sorry, I have the window open. I don't know if you hear the noise, but so the nature of what you teach is also important, or it changes the way that you teach it. Yeah. We're going to focus, I'm going to give you some pointers on how to teach things like values. Yeah, which will come up a lot, but also the main focus will be skill, because a lot of the times there are technical skills that you want to teach. We're going to look at different formats or different types of exercises that we can use. We're going to look at how to select those, and what you're looking for, and so on, and then how to prepare a plan or a group of exercises in order to help your team or your group or whatever it is, the people that you're coaching, or trying to help learn. Yeah, we're not going to be focusing on facilitation. Facilitation most likely will have its own session. So a lot of this is what needs to happen even before you go into the room, so to speak, or even before you pair with someone, and so on. Yeah. So any questions so far on what we are going to be looking at? If you have more questions or things that you would like to know that are related to this, be my guest, put them on the chat, or unmute yourself and say hi, and ask them. Yeah. Questions? Not everyone at once. That's okay. Well, learning as an individual versus learning as a team. What do you think is different? Like, let's start with, how do you think we learn as individuals? Like, what do you think is the process? Like, when you learn, because we all learn, right? How do you think you go about it? Like, what is your process?
Maybe firstly, like, I come up with the motivation, and then I look for information, and then I learn.
Okay, so you go for motivation. You first want to learn. Yeah, that's very important. If you don't want to learn, no, you the same way you can't coach someone who doesn't want to be coached.
Yeah, exactly.
You probably cannot teach if someone is not motivated to learn, right? As well, right? So you get the motivation, then you look for information, and then what? How do you turn that information into actual knowledge or skill or proficiency? Like, how does that work for you?
I'll try to apply it for the already knowledge that I have.
Okay.
And also to implement it somehow in my environment. So what I'm looking for is information.
Okay, so you hit on all of the notes for that, because as an individual, we usually go through kind of like this cycle here. Yeah, you decide that you want to learn, or you want to know, you try it out, you reflect on what happened, and then based on that, you kind of connect it to the knowledge that you already have, and then you decide what to do next, and so on and so forth, right? Again, you can come in at different points in the cycle if you like, but there is this experiential kind of aspect, where you're making sense and connecting to the knowledge that you already have, but at the same time you're practicing. If you're not practicing, then the knowledge is that, are you creating real skill behind it? Are you acquiring that knowledge? What do you guys think?
True.
Some of it, like I'm not saying no. There are some aspects that you are acquiring when you are if you read a book, or if you, but that does not mean that you're creating skill or so on, right? Now, what is the difference then, or how do you think that works in a team?
Maybe the same way, but also you need to align this new skill information topic with the team to know that they really are ready for it, that they need it, that they understand the value of it.
Okay.
And
Okay, so this is the thing. So yes, correctly assume, like, the process is very similar. Now there's some distinctions on it, and the process for the team, it is, it's happening at the individual at the individual level, but also as a team is also happening, right? So you're going through these stages. I call it stages, but they don't necessarily need to be stages. You could be jumping around, no? But the idea is that you have the same reflection process. You have, the connecting aspect as well. It just takes a different shape, right? And part of that is, that reflection aspect, if you do it individually, yeah, does not mean that you will be learning as a group. Like you can learn individually, but not learn as a group. And part of that is that you need to create a common understanding of what is happening, and you need to create a common, coordination around what to do or how to act and so on, right? And those things are quite important. A lot of the times, both when we're learning individually and when we're learning as a team, people tend to get stuck into, for instance, these two aspects here, either the, let's plan and do, let's plan and do, plan and do, plan and do, but there's no reflection about what is happening, and then therefore there's no improvement, there's no connection to what we were in, and like that is missing. And then at the same time, people could also be stuck on this other area, like a lot of thinking and a lot of connecting and so on, but very little practice. Yeah, and those things in general tend to go against acquiring the skill or acquiring the thing that you're trying to learn. Yeah, does that make sense to you? Like, is that clear? Are there any questions on this? Okay, so another important thing to know when you're working as a team and learning as a team is that for each of these areas, right, there's also, let's say, certain proclivities that people have, right? There are people who are better at executing, or have more of a they have a knack for implementing. There are people who are more system thinkers. They like connecting, and they like doing have this general understanding. There are people who are more divergent thinkers, who are more the exploration part of the reflection or creativity aspect, and so on. And understanding that this is something natural as you go through this process. There are people who tend to be more in one place than the other, and so on. And being able to understand what is needed in the learning process and where people are, so that you can help them, let's say, focus towards what is needed, is also quite important there, right? And I know we said we weren't going to go into facilitation and stuff, but this is important as well, because when you are going through that cycle, you want to some extent cater to each of those kind of roles, or those dependencies, and because people tend to do better in those. So if you want to keep them engaged and so on, that's also an important aspect to look at. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jose, to interrupt. I don't know if you wanted the presentation to be, because we are not seeing right now the presentation.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yes,
I'm so sorry.
I didn't know if you want us.
Oh my God, you were not seeing any of this.
No, so.
Oh my God. Great presenter, eh? Helping people use your mind's eye, exactly. So yeah, sorry. So just to reiterate, this is kind of like the cycle that I mentioned before, as you're going through the individual learning process, where you have more abstract, more concrete, more action, more reflection. These are the different kind of, this is kind of like the loop for learning. And as I was mentioning, some people get stuck here, some people get stuck here, right? But in order to do the whole thing, right, you need to go through all of the steps, so to speak. And when we're talking about the team itself, it's happening at both levels. It's happening at the individual level, but also at the group level. It's happening in a different way, right? It's about coordination, it's about joint planning, it's about public reflection. So people are expressing what it is that the reflection is and how they're thinking about it, but also giving meaning to things, right? And this is one example that is key, because for instance, you may, I don't know, let's take the example of a retrospective. Someone goes through a sprint, or we finish a project or something like that, and now we're doing a retrospective. And it is often the case that if you, at the beginning of the retrospective, you ask people how things went, some people may say, oh, it went great, and some people say, no, it was terrible, right? And that comes from their experience as an individual in that context, right? Which, again, the sum of those experiences, or the common and shared understanding of those experiences, is what actually is important for the group to be able to learn, right? Like some people need to, it was great because we managed to deliver, et cetera, and then someone else, yeah, but it was not that great because I had to work during the weekend to be able to get those things done, right? And those are things that not everyone may know, and so on and so forth. So getting everyone on the same page and having that common mental model of how things are supposed to work, or what understanding of what happened, get everyone on the same page, is quite important. Yeah. I apologize again because I thought everyone was seeing these graphs, and I was like, oh shit. Anyways, and when I was talking about the different roles or styles, or proclivities that people have, and how they fit, this is what I was referring to. You have people who are, again, more divergent thinkers, that like more of an area. Other people are more, let's get done, let's get stuff done. Or people are more, how everything connects together, making sense of things, and so on. And you need to cater for all of those when you're trying to help a group learn as well. Yeah. Questions so far? Now that you see the graphs. Oh, Jesus. No questions? I cannot see the chat.
No, Jose, for now we don't have questions, I think.
Okay, all right. So moving forward then, yeah. There's two aspects of this that are quite important. I already mentioned one, the mental models and getting that shared understanding, but there is also the transactional aspect of the memory system that gets created when you have a group, right? What is this transactional? Okay, so have you, there's a comedian that I like, that he says, when I want to, let's say, remember something, I just tell my wife about it, and then I'll just ask her, no, honey, where do we put, I don't know, the bottle opener, where it's always, but okay, so where do we put the bottle opener, or whatever, right? Like that kind of situation that you find in couples, it also happens in teams, right? And it tends to happen very naturally as well, right? Like people tend to specialize in things, or tend to be the holders of certain information, right? And this helps the group because it allows individuals in the group to have access to more information than what they on their own could do, basically, right? Like if we have someone who's an expert in a specific part of the domain, I can have some of that information, but it doesn't make sense to completely have all of that information myself if we have already an expert, right? So I'll be getting some of that stuff, but when I need something, I will go to that person. So all of that is happening when you're doing that public reflection, when you're connecting and sense making and reflecting as a team. Yeah, and this is quite important as well. Okay. Now, when we talk about what to teach, yeah, what we're trying to teach actually defines how we teach it. Do you agree with that? Because not all knowledge is the same. Yeah, can you give me an example if you agree with this, or you don't? But
Well, I guess if you need to learn how to build a flat, or if you need to learn how to teach, for example.
Okay, so is it the
I don't
same
know.
to learn, I don't know, what all the capitals in the world are than it is to learn, I don't know, TDD? Is it the same type of knowledge?
No.
Is solid patterns or design patterns in software or something like that the same knowledge as I don't know, something along those lines? No, and being able to enumerate every single design pattern is not the same type of knowledge, right? So let's take a look at what are some of those types of knowledge. And this comes from the original paper from Bloom's taxonomy. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but there are different types of knowledge, right? Like factual knowledge, things like what I mentioned before, terminology, etc., right? Conceptual knowledge, models, right? Like how things are supposed to work, what are the principles, and so on. A lot of the work that we do when we're talking, for instance, about teaching agile, teaching, quality, or getting coaching a team on quality or this kind of stuff, moves around these areas. No, procedural knowledge, which is how do you do it? Like what are the steps? Yeah, and then there's this last layer, which is more related to connecting things to self-awareness, to there's a whole that is not in the process itself. No, the rest. No, and each of these things defines how you're going to teach it, right? If my interest is for you to be able to learn solid principles. By the way, I'm using these examples from software and so on, but this can be applied to anything, right? That's the idea. There might be a combination of things that when you think of solid principles or learning solid principles, there might be a combination of things there. There might be an area of, yes, being able to enumerate, recall, etc., etc. There's a combination of there's an aspect of, how do you do it, right? Like how do you take code that's already written and apply those principles? No, then what are the steps? Yeah, and so on and so forth. Or what does good design look like? No, how does like all of these things are part of that thing that you call solid principles, right? But in reality, it's a combination of different types of knowledge as well. Yeah. So this is important as well. And I know I'm going through some basics here, but it's important to understand these things when you're actually going for the. So let's take an example. Yeah. How do you teach values, for instance? Like, can you give me an example?
Maybe through actually example, like if you're honest, or if you are a person who likes transparency, and then you teach that by being that or by doing that, it's a good way, by example.
Okay, by example. Okay. Anything else? Someone else? Yeah, leading by example is the same thing. No, that's one. Yeah, okay. So I do the thing, no, and therefore no. So you're able to experience through others, no, so to speak, through their behavior. Okay. Anything else? No? Anyone here has kids? Okay. All right, let's look at some things that you can do in order to teach it. Yeah. First is the whole codification aspect. So you're trying to teach a value, and to some extent you talk about that value. No, if we're talking about kids, no, respect or honesty or humility or whatever it is. No, in the case of software, quality or or adaptability or whatever it is that you want to go for. No, and you first codify that, and you can have conversations around it. No, like what does it mean, etc., etc. Right? Of course, you can demonstrate in your daily life. So this is how you express that value and so on. Yeah. There's also examples, or taking people through examples. Yeah. Like this is how this should have happened, no, or this is what would happen if you're actually using this value and so on, right? And walking them through those examples to help. Yeah. There's an aspect of empathy as well, like helping people put themselves in other people's shoes. Yeah. So if we're talking about quality, for instance, it's very common in teams. Now, I want to introduce TDD. Yeah. I'm going to bash everyone over the head with the TDD book, and then this is how they're going to learn, right? And there's an aspect of helping them understand what's behind that, what are the values behind that, et cetera, which also involves understanding how they feel about it, what is important for them, and so on and so forth. So helping people reflect about what others are feeling is also a very good way of helping with that. Another aspect that you can do is look for like-minded people. Yeah, people who already have these values so that people can be with them. You can bring people to speak on your company's lunch and learns or events. You can go to communities. Like all of these things will also help with people experiencing and having other inputs around what that looks like or how those values look like. There's the aspect of open-mindedness and encouraging interaction with different perspectives and different yes, I value quality. This other person doesn't seem like it. I would like to understand why, what is it that they think, like why this is not important to them, why, that kind of reflective approach as well, to understand the other points of view, but or how they solve the issues that you think are solved by applying quality or whatever. That's important. Yeah. And of course, there's the behavioral aspect. I already spoke about this a little bit when I touched on the different coaching models, like the ADKAR model and so on. So I'm not going to go too much into detail in that, but that is also an important aspect, right? So all of these things, and I started by this because changing people's minds, you can teach them the practice, but if they don't want, I think it was Anna or something like that was saying, if you don't, if they don't want to learn, if they don't share the value, or you can teach them in practice, but that's not going to get you anywhere. Yeah, and a lot of the times that is part of that learning process or that coaching process that you need to help them with. Yeah.
Jose, there is one that is asking, what about getting frequent feedback?
Mm-hmm. That's very important as well. There will be a session dedicated to providing good feedback and so on. But that feedback is, again, part of that loop that we saw here. Yeah, because that feedback is basically an input, of how that is influencing, let's say, your own ideas, or your individual idea of how things are going, right? Hey, I'm doing great. Look at this code, and then someone else who has a bit more skill or has seen this problem before or whatever comes to say, well, what if this happens? What if this other thing happens? What is how will you do this or how will you do that? And it's not such a great solution anymore. Then that's kind of changing, your perspective, or your own mental model. But when you're doing this as a team, again, you're doing it as a team as well, right? Like that is part of the reflection process. Yeah. Does that answer the question? It's essential. Like basically the feedback is, on your own through metrics, or, someone gives you feedback or whatever, like that's just part of closing that loop, and finishing that reflection process or that learning process. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yes, she said yes.
All right, cool. Okay, so let's then look at Bloom's taxonomy. And this is a tool that is very useful. I use it all the time when we're doing this kind of stuff. It's a tool that was invented quite some time ago, that's been revisited in 2001. This is a version that we normally use. Yeah. And basically it's research precisely on knowledge and how people learn and interact and work with that knowledge. Yeah. The level of proficiency, let's say, what you would call skill and so on, people have with that knowledge. And what the Bloom taxonomy does is that it classifies, these interactions with the knowledge in a scale, where you have something as basic or as foundational as remembering something or recognizing some pattern or recalling something that you learned, etc., right? All the way to applying it, all the way to being able to create, something new, no, or to master something to the level where you're kind of contributing, no, to create something. Yeah. And the idea is that when you're using this, or this is useful because it not only allows you to understand how to, let's say, focus the learning for each type of knowledge, yeah, but also allows you to set learning goals. And I already had a session on setting goals as well. I talked a lot about this stuff, but it will help you see what is the level, let's say, of proficiency, no, that you want to get to, so that when you are teaching or helping the team learn, you can select the exercises to fit the level that you want them to. A common mistake is saying, oh, you know, we did a talk on microservices, or we did a talk on whatever, scalability patterns. Yeah. Which level, if looking at this, yeah, which level do you think that works on? Like, you know, going to a conference, let's say, and watching a talk of someone saying something. Where do you think that's placed here?
The green one, when they can apply, so they can come, they can join the meeting, conference.
That's too high. Apply
Okay.
would be they are able to implement scalability patterns, no, or they are able to break the monolith into microservices, or create a microservice, or that would be applying. No, I am proficient enough with that knowledge to be able to apply it. Yeah. By the way, I'm talking about going to a talk, not giving the talk.
So then to remember and then understand where to
remembering and
talk.
understanding, exactly. Now, a lot of the time, this is where people stay. Yeah, they come, they give you a talk, and no, here's the PowerPoint presentation, boom, 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 and let's move on to the next thing. That's not very effective. Yeah. This needs to be combined with other things in order to get to the level that you want. And this is precisely what we're going to be looking at in the next area. Because again, what this allows us to do is provides clarity on what the objective is, or what are, you know, both the people that you're teaching and yourself have clarity on what you want to achieve, or why are we having this interaction? No, this is what we both getting out of it. No, it gives you focus on to select the exercises, to select a proper evaluation, and so on, and it allows you to plan on top of these goals. Yeah, so let's take one example. Yeah, solid design principles. Yeah, this is the material that I would like to, you know, that we're kind of going to be working on. The goal is for team members to be able to apply, yeah, solid design principles in the code that they have. Okay, so let's look at how would that look, or how a sequence or a plan of exercises, let's put it like that, no, that you could create in order to help people get to the level that you want them to be. Yeah, so you will start probably with something like, you know, read about the solid principles and describe them to me. That's the basic. You know, if you're interviewing someone and you ask them about solid principles, that's usually, you know, oh, single responsibility principles, and so on and so forth, right? Now, understanding them takes a little bit more, right? So one example that you could do is you could give them a diagram or show them some code, yeah, and ask them to basically illustrate where they see the solid principles apply. Yeah, either a UML diagram or, you know, some code. Yeah, that's already exercising a different level, right, of this. Yeah. Then you can move it into applying it. So how do you go about applying it? You show them some code, yeah, and then you ask them, take this code and make modifications in it to apply X principle. No, how can you open for extension close for modification, this thing. This is how this code is going to change. I would like you to make some changes to it so that, and here you're already at the kind of like the goal level that you were going for, right? Like this is, you want them to apply. So if they're able to do this, you show them some code and, and then you work with them, you give them feedback, etc., etc. This would already kind of work. But if you don't want to stay there, yeah, what can you do? Then you go into, okay, so they already did that, yeah. Now you want them to analyze what, let's say, what the impact is of the change that they made in something else. For instance, coupling and cohesion, which are other characteristics of code, no, and so on, and have a discussion about it. Now you're involving not only the individual that was able to do this, yeah, but others that maybe did the exercise and they have a different point of view, and they can, there's more of a sharing aspect happening in there, yeah. There's that debrief happening. Then a different level will be to, okay, I'll give you some other code, yeah, which is poorly written or whatever, right? And I will tell you, okay, identify where solid is not being applied correctly here, why, and then let's have a discussion. So now I'm not only able to identify it and apply and so on, now I'm able to evaluate whether something is correctly used or not, and reason about it. Yeah, and I'm sharing this with the rest of the team and so on. Yeah, and then the last thing, the last thing would be, for instance, as a group, now you need to work on creating an exercise, yeah, to teach someone solid principles. Yeah, so we went through the whole pyramid, and by the point that they're able to create an exercise to teach other people, that is quite a high understanding of what you have. No, or this knowledge. Yeah. Let's look at another example. Do you want to look at another example? No, we don't. Shut up. Okay. Here's another example. you don't want it. Okay, so let's say trunk-based development, which is another practice that is very common, commonly used. Yeah. Again, this is very much applicable to. I'm using examples from software, but you can apply this to anything. Yeah. So you want team member to be able to work together with other team members using trunk-based development. Yeah, so the goal here is for them to be able to use it with other people, not to use them on their own and so on, but to actually work in a project doing this thing. Yeah, so let's see. Remember, yeah, so first point, describe what is trunk-based development in a nutshell. Like how does it work? Yeah, that would be the first step. Yeah, does everyone know what trunk-based development is, by the way? Say yes on the chat or no in the chat. That's fine as well. No. Okay, so trunk-based development is an approach to version control or code version control, where instead of having multiple main branches or different main branches and working on instead of having a main branch and working on feature branches and having a develop branch that goes into master and so on and so forth, like there's different levels of the code. Instead of having that, you only have one and everyone works on that one. So everyone's committing to the same code base at the same level, let's say. And if there are branches, they're very short-lived, a couple of hours at most, 24 or 1 day. Like at the end of the day, you are integrating everything into the main branch. Yeah, this creates a bunch of problems, right? Like it's basically like everyone is working on the same files and everything. No, it creates some collaboration issues, but it can be done very effectively if you have the right tools and so on and so forth, right? And the first thing is describing it. Like what is it? Everyone integrates all the time on one branch. Yeah, That's perfect. Yeah. So can you draw then a diagram explaining step by step, how a developer would use trunk-based development to deliver a feature? Yeah. So this is now is not only all I'm able to tell you. This is like procedural aspect. No, I need to know, what are the steps or what are the complications that I'm going to find, and I need to be able to convey that to you in a graph and so on. Yeah, and this is a particular example of something that could come up. No, as what do you do if my feature is not finished, but I still need to go to production? But we're all working on the same branch, therefore there's code there that is not ready to go to production. What do we do about that, and so on, right? So that would be an example. So applying would be then, okay, so this is a collaboration thing. So in groups, yeah, let's now all work on a kata, some exercise to deliver a feature. It could be the bank kata, it could be some other exercise, no? And the purpose is not to do the kata, that's great, like if we all get to finish the kata or whatever. The purpose is to apply trunk-based development, yeah, to this thing. So you give them the kata, they are all working on the same code base. They're supposed to be using trunk-based development. And then once they do that, they're able to debrief, create common understanding, et cetera, provide, receive feedback, et cetera, right? So that's the application aspect. You want to continue, yeah? Then you would do things like compare trunk-based development to other source control approaches like Git flow, which is very popular, is the other one that I was talking about. Yeah. If pros and cons, discuss, etc. If you're talking about evaluating, yeah, this is more around what context, right? Like if this is the procedure, no? Now I understand what the pros and cons are. I understand other things, no? In which context would you recommend using this? Or in which content you would not recommend using this. Yeah. And the last one, which would be creative, will be more around the lines of, you describe the situation. Yeah. You describe the end state where you already know what the end state is. No, we're working, let's say, on feature branches, no, Git flow. We would like to end here. Yeah. Tell me what are the steps, no, to be able to move there. This is you need to have a very good understanding of what it is that the challenges are and what are the challenges of the other thing in order to put in place a plan, no, or in order to come up with a strategy to get there. Yeah. That will be a higher level of understanding, no, the real creativity. You're not creating a new branch model, but you are creating a plan to migrate there. Yeah, you need to look at all the things that you will need in order to get there. Yeah. Would you like to do an exercise now, similar to this one, where I just choose the the material and you go through it, or do we want to skip this?
Let's see.
No?
There is some answer. I don't have anything for now.
I said nope. There's a couple of nopes there. I'm guessing this is from the previous question. Yeah. All right. Well, no problem. Do this exercise yourself. Yeah, this is important. It's part of the thing, no, to be able to do this with ease, to create that. Now, let's move on then to the next part, which would be what are the different formats, no, that I have then to be able to do this. Yeah, and before, when I was talking about the Bloom taxonomy, there's also this wheel here. For each level, there's a bunch of verbs that you can associate with that. So you could create exercises directly using this stuff, right? Like if this is online, you can find it easily. You just look for Bloom's taxonomy wheel or something like that, and you get a lot of this stuff. You can get a lot of you can get a lot of value out of this, yeah, even if you don't know programming or whatever, like you're trying to choose something else. This would be very helpful. Yeah. Now, a lot of the times for programming in particular, you have tons of different formats. Yeah. And these are things like, pair programming. And my idea here was to go through a lot of the formats and and go into detail on each of them and maybe discuss a little bit more, you know, what are the pros, cons, and so on. I'm not going to do that because there's a ton of them. Yeah. But if you look at the ones that I have here on screen, yeah, is there anything in particular that you see that is not familiar or that you haven't heard of, or that you would like a little bit more of an explanation about? Yeah, we have pair programming, katas of different types, architectural katas, code katas, refactoring katas, design kata. You have things like object catalyst techniques and transformation priority premises, which which is, you know, which are two exercises that are quite helpful and used, no, people to work around solid principles and so on. You have code reviews, yeah. You have coding dojos. You have mob programming, action learning sets. Has anyone heard of action learning sets? No.
No, there's a no in the chat.
Okay, so I'll go into action learning sets later. Yeah. You have other things like establishing communities of practice, or, you know, creating these groups where people can, you know, share, have common understanding, different perspectives, etc. Yeah. You have retrospectives, for postmortems, and all of these things, which are meetings dedicated in particular to that reflection process. Yeah. Lunch and learns, which are usually talks that people talks or workshops that people prepare. Learning sessions, as in classroom sessions, yeah. And there's a bunch of approaches on this. You can do, you know, what I just explained, and you guide them through the process. But there's also, you know, flipped classroom kind of approaches where you give them the topic, they research the topic, and then they are the ones presenting and kind of putting everything together, no? Or you give them the exercise, they have to do the research to be able to do the exercise themselves. We use this a lot in our academy programs as well. You have assessment instruments, which is, you know, how to evaluate. There are certain tools that will help you evaluate things. It's not just you know, just your understanding there that can help you with that. Coaching dojos, which are more related to coaching in particular, talks with different formats, and shadowing. Yeah. So bringing people with you, along to see what you're doing and so on and so forth, right? So there's a ton of formats that you can use, and each of these formats works on different areas, right? So saying that technical coaching is all about, just doing some pair programming is, it's only focusing on one particular aspect of the whole thing. Yeah. So what are action learning sets? Because this is quite interesting as well. So action learning sets is kind of like is this coming from coaching? It's basically how to help a group kind of reflect, right? And usually it takes the shape of someone sharing an issue. As a group, you explore the issue with questions, to understand more the context and so on. You put forward proposals for actions, etc. And then you go out, implement those actions, and come back and bring that back to the group, right? So it could be, people in different projects sharing, talking about scalability. Someone puts forward a problem that they're having in the project. The rest of the people will ask questions, etc., will expose their knowledge about it, etc. Then out of that, maybe some ideas of different actions can come out of that, and the person take those things, goes, implements, get some feedback on how that went, and then brings that back into the group to reshare that knowledge with the rest, right? So that is quite interesting as well. A lot of organizations miss out on these things, right? You learn a lot in one project, and then that knowledge doesn't cross-pollinate. It doesn't go anywhere. It dies with the people in the project, so to speak, when it finishes. Okay. Any other areas that you like us to look at, let's say, from the different types of exercises? Are you familiar, for instance, with the different types of katas that are available? Do you know where this idea comes from? no? Right, so a kata in martial arts is usually a sequence of movements, no, that people practice in order to get better with their technique, right? And it's a way for the teacher to be able to see, where, you're making the mistake so that they can go and correct that, because they know exactly how that's supposed to go. So, they can tell you, no, don't do it like this, or don't put your hand like this. And but so it's a way of deliberate practice, right? Like a reflected practice, but you're working on something that is not your actual production code, or it's usually an exercise, right? There are many ways of doing that. The typical example is, you have some exercise, or you need to implement this using TV, and you get some rules, right? Like that's normally the format. But then you can do this on your own. You can do this in pairs. Yeah, you can do this using mob programming, or what's the name? Kagekada, I think it's called, or something like that. I don't remember. So basically, where you have let's say you have the exercise, yeah, and you have two people who are pairing to solve that exercise. Everyone else is looking at them, and but one of the guys in the pair and the rest of the people are doing what is called the navigator. So they are thinking about the process, they're discussing ideas, etc. And then there's someone who's implementing. And then after a while, yeah, the person who was implementing moves to the navigator role. The person who was sitting next to him doing the navigator role goes into implementation, and someone else new comes in, right? And this pair is explaining what they're thinking, or what the implementation is, and so on, right? So this is one format. Another format is to have a prepared kata, what is called a prepared kata, where everyone's working on the same exercise, but you already have the kata prepared. So you know what are the steps, and what's the next thing that is going to happen, and so on. And people are just following along with you, and they're trying to follow that format. Yeah. Another example, I mean, this is just the code katas, eh? Like on top of that, you have, architectural katas, where I give you a context and I ask you to design a system, and then present that system to others. Then others will give you feedback about that, and maybe introduce new constraints to your system, see how what you design has to change now with the new constraints introduced, and so on and so forth. And the design ones, or the CRC cards, is you design the system using a particular technique, which is called class responsibility collaborators cards. Yeah, so that's one example. Yeah. Other stuff like let's say coding dojos, for instance. The coding dojos, or the format for the coding, is usually how you end up doing these exercises, right? Like if you are what I just explained, sorry, I got confused there. So the kata is the actual exercise, and that could be the architecture or whatever, right? And the coding dojo, or the format, how you go about solving the exercise, is usually one of these, randori, or I already mentioned something. Shameless plug, there's this format that there's an event that happens every year. It's called Global Day of Code Retreat, which is basically a huge coding dojo. It happens all over the world. It's a full day, people practicing with an exercise. We do several sessions and so on. We are hosting that in Barcelona and Madrid this year in our offices, but I'm sure there are other places that do that, probably wherever you are. So check them out if you want to join one of ours. Just go to a website. I think it's already published there, or sign up to the meetup group, and you get the information there. Yeah, but again, there's a lot of stuff in here around that. Are there any other questions? Like, is there any other format or anything that you like to look at before we move on to the last bit of this? It's quite quiet today, yeah? I normally get some interaction, but how are we good so far?
You're explaining well, so there's no questions.
Yeah, well. So the last aspect here then would be, what's the algorithm? No, like if you want to do this and I want to go and generate my plan and so on, like what would you do? You start with selecting a goal. If you want to look at the session that I gave on that one, you select the goal, you break it down into intermediate steps, sort of what we did with solid and so on. And sometimes you have a goal or a thing that is too big, and you need to break it down into many small pieces. For instance, a team that wants to have 0 bugs, no, or don't they total quality kind of thing, no? Okay, so what does that mean? That means that we need to reduce regressions. That means that we need to establish quality gateways. That means that we need to have some automation and so on and so forth. And you start breaking that down into the things that you want people to be able to learn in order to get to no regressions, or in order to get to 0 bugs, right? And then once you have that, you select the appropriate exercise depending on the sub-objective, using the Bloom's taxonomy and so on, and looking at the formats that we have available, looking at different exercises and so on. You select the appropriate assessment strategy as well. So how do you want to evaluate yourself, how this went? No, you prepare the exercise and assessment, deliver, and assess and provide that feedback. Yeah. Now I have one last exercise. I think this would be cool to try out. Because I have all the different tools that I mentioned, or different formats that I mentioned, and I have the different levels in Bloom's taxonomy. And it would be good I'll give you a link here to this board, and I'll give you edit privileges, paste it here. And what I would ask you to do is put a star next to the thing that you feel works at that level, so to speak, right? Like, let's say pair programming, work on remembering, understanding, applying, analyze, evaluate. Where do you think it goes, for instance? Or which, it could be more than one that it works on.
Feel free to go on the Miro board with the link in the chat, and if you want, you can leave your microphone on. So
someone is saying create. Yeah. Anything else? Apply, obviously, no, because you're writing the code, or you're no. What else? So let's try that out. Let's take 1 or 2 minutes to just come here and try to put in the stars next to where you think it goes. Would be good for everyone to come here, yeah, to where I am, and not go into the answer that I already created to this exercise. That would be cheating. Yeah. So let's see, where do you think each of these things go, like, or works on?
Quick question. I think I'm only seeing the answers. I'm trying not to look, but if I follow your mouse, I end up there in the table that is pre-filled.
Me too.
Okay.
Are you in a table that is pre-filled?
Yeah. What I see is not like what I see on your screen. I see all the stars.
Oh, I don't know. That must be a bug or something. But basically, yeah.
And I'm not the only one, apparently.
No.
Okay. Well, I guess that's screwed up the exercise then. Then let's try to do it together here, because I don't know what's happening there. No, like if you, like, you're not seeing this, like you're seeing this with all the stars, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Wait, I have no idea why that is happening. Okay.
We want to try to do it over the microphone all together here.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's do it against the. Yeah. So pair programming, where would you say? Someone said create. Yeah. Yeah. So create. Yeah. Apply. What else?
Will it be analyze if one order to analyze the code of the other one?
Evaluating as well. I
So
mean,
if
if
it's
it goes all the
analyzing,
way
then
to create.
evaluating.
Exactly. Yeah. If it's analyzing as well, evaluating. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else? What about code reviews? Do you know what code reviews are? Like when you're, let's say, merging code, yeah, someone else has to review it, someone from your team, and provide feedback, or what would that, where would that work?
Then understand, analyze, evaluate.
Understand, analyze, evaluate. Yeah, you have to provide feedback. You have to, yeah. Does it work on apply?
Well, it's actually
Yeah, still.
Hmm?
But if they're merging it and they need to
Yeah,
go
normally,
through it,
yeah, normally they don't do any changes to your code. Like they just give you opinions on it.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
All right.
Not applying.
What about I don't know, an architecture kata? Let's jump or one of these at the bottom. Yeah, let's say yeah, action learning sets, for instance, which is another one that I explained already. Like where does action learning sets work?
So it's
Do you remember
remember,
what that was?
understand, apply.
Apply.
So apply, yeah. Understand, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, remember, understand.
Mm-hmm. What else? What else?
Yeah, create as well.
Create. Okay. Is it working? Evaluate and analyzing.
Evaluate more than analyze.
Evaluate more than analyze. Why do you think that?
Because when you already create that you created something, then you analyze it. So, but evaluate also, yeah, includes the process of evaluation, of creation includes process of evaluation.
Mm-hmm. So,
Could you zoom it in?
So can I zoom in? Yes, I can zoom in.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. What do you want to see?
Yeah, for that one.
So would it include analyze as well then? So
yeah,
one,
and then yes.
yeah. So what is the difference between analyze and evaluate? Let's see. Wait, sorry. What would the difference be between analyzing and evaluating? Because it seems like that's not very clear.
Yeah, they go together.
They go a little bit together, but in one, you're able to form an opinion or a judgment, or you're able to critique a solution or something. And the other one is more about understanding the why, no, or understanding how things fit together, more than it is about forming an opinion on how things should be and why they should be that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need to be able to, if you're evaluating, you need to be able to articulate, the reasoning behind, the thing. When you are analyzing, you need to be able to explain and examine and kind of find the relationships between the things, but that does not mean, you know, is it a good relationship, is it a bad relationship, and so on, right? Like it's just these things are related, no, or these things are connected. Okay.
So yeah, according to the pyramid that if it applies equation, that means that it should be all the steps: apply, analyze, evaluate, grade.
Exactly. Normally, when you are creating, you have a deeper knowledge, no? So you're able to do all of the other things together. Yep. Okay. So that is it for today's session. Sorry that the exercise didn't work out as well as I expected. I don't know what happened there with Mirror. I'll have to give them some feedback. But before we go, are there any questions, anything that, you know, maybe I should have gone a bit deeper into, or, you know, some expectations maybe that you had around the session that were not met? You know, what, you know, was this what you were expecting, let's say?
Or maybe just a practical question about how people take it when you try to talk with them with these terms, or you just try to simplify it the way is.
No, you don't talk to them about Bloom's taxonomy or anything like that. You like people would only see, you know, this kind of stuff, right? Like you would ask them, I don't know, to read the papers on solid, no, and then, you know, to be able to describe them, no, and then you would go, and then so they would, I mean, they would see the content that you were delivering to them, and they would see the exercises, and you can give them feedback, no, all of that stuff. You're not gonna go and say, you know, this is analyzing in Bloom's taxonomy, or this is that's for you to prepare. This is basically the whole point of this is for people to help others, no, to learn.
Yeah, because otherwise you will complicate it even
exactly
more.
yeah no then they're learning the framework at the same time that they're learning the thing that you want to teach them, no. You may, however, agree on goals, right? Like that is important as well, because that way they can keep the focus, and again, it helps clarify expectations on both sides on what it is that you're trying to but a lot of this stuff is work that happens before you run the sessions themselves. Yeah. Either through your preparation or, you know, discussions with the team and so on. Yeah. Does that help you? That clarifies what what you were asking? Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Do you feel like you would be able to, you know, create now a plan to teach one of these subjects, like maybe a set of exercises, or at least try it out?
I need to go through again all these things first to understand deeper, and then probably.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Try it out.
Sounds good. Yeah. So that's it for today's session. If I had to choose one, there are some questions. Let's see. Maturity of the team is a factor to choose one approach or another, I guess. Depends on what you mean by maturity. Are we talking about, you know, are you teaching 5th graders? No, or are you talking about the team being dysfunctional? No, and then not being able to learn together, right? Or are you talking about the level of knowledge that they already have on the subject that you want to teach? So
yeah, maybe in terms of a team that is already agile. Maturity.
Yeah, but this stuff, like, it's not really connected to agile or not, right? Like agile could be another subject, right? Like there's another session where we will talk about what things can you teach, you know, and so on. We will deal with all that stuff. Quite technical. But it's not agile specific, right? Like if you're trying to help people understand a particular subject like this, you know, of course there will be people who are in different levels. That could be an issue, no? Like if you have people who don't know anything, and you know, you have people that are more advanced, but this is kind of classroom management and facilitation as well. Like what can you do? You compare them, you know, people who are similar level or people who are in very different levels, so that they can help each other out, right? And learn from each other. So that is an option there. But again, I don't know exactly what Pauli was mentioning as maturity, no?
Yeah, I think maybe it's maybe what you have just said, that is that there are different level of knowledge in the team. So maybe you need to use different approach for a subset of the team. You cannot use the same approach for maybe everybody.
That could be it. Yeah, that could be it. You could run different sessions. You could break them in groups, and one group does one exercise, the other group does a different exercise. You could do exercises with a group, the group that is in let's say in a lower scale or in a lower level, of knowledge. You could run a set of exercises just with that group to get them to where you want them to be, to the other group, and then continue together. That's another option. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
Any other questions? Right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time. Yeah. And that's not easy, and we're already over time, so I apologize for that. And see you on the next session. And thanks again to Maria, to Jacopo, to Valeria, etc. that work very hard on organizing this stuff. So great. We'll have the recording on YouTube. Yeah. And we will also put a link to the board just with viewing privileges. Yeah. Let me just change that right now so that.
Yes, just that a quick reminder that we will do in our Insights page, we will share a blog and where we will share this presentation, and also on YouTube the recording of this session.
Yeah, I just repasted the link there as well there. Okay.
Yes.
So again,
presentation.
Right. So thank you very much, and I hope it was helpful. Okay.
Thank you so much, Jose. Thank you, everyone.